This was back in the 1980s, because I'm quite old, and I'd written this newsletter was going to be printed, and I'd done it on a typewriter, because in those days we didn't have access to lots of computers at work. Actually, the one I had at home was better than the one I had at work, and the one I had at work was an electronic typewriter. So I'd sent this off, and it came back from the advertising agency as a galley. So, it's called a galley, is like a proof for you to, it looks like it the way it will look, but it's on a big sheet of paper. And they'd taken my neatly typed headline, which was all in capital letters because it was a headline, and they'd turned it into bigger font, but lowercase, like sentence case. And I said, well, poof, I thought I knew what I was talking about, picked the phone up, rang them up and went, why have you changed my headline into lowercase? And the guy who was on the other end was our accounts exec, and he was a Brit, but he'd been around the block a few times and he knew his stuff, and here's this upstart telling him his job. Anyway, he was quite patient. And he said, well, do you want people to read it? I said, well, of course, but it's a headline, it should be in capitals. And he went, people don't read capitals easily. If it's a sentence, they're all the same height, there's no shape to the words. It's quite hard for the brain to process. I went, okay, so every letter should have a capital letter. And he said, yes, if you want people to read it one word at a time. And I said, what? He said, quite. I went, okay. And he said, basically, a capital letter stops the I at the beginning of every word. So people don't read fluidly, they just read a word at a time. Now, if you're someone like Ted Nicholas, who writes, super duper sales copy, although he's no longer with us, he passed a couple of years ago, I think, but he knows all the words that people buy on. And I think he reckoned there were 72 words that people bought on. So he basically could create sentences that had buying words all the way through them. I'm not that clever, but I do want people to engage with my headlines. So I write something I think will pull them in and get them to want to read a bit more. So my core skill was copywriting, but then it sort of developed, because then I'm going, well, if I'm writing, I need to know who I'm writing for. So I would ask clients, so I'm writing a website, who's your target audience? And they go, well, anybody who wants what we do, which makes me cringe these days. And I thought, well, that's not very helpful, because everybody is different and different people want different things. So what's an ideal client? And it gradually has developed. So it's now become part of what we do here, is the consultancy side of it as well, to help people to get their marketing content focused. And marketing is a massive discipline. I learned a little bit about it when I was doing my professional qualifications yonks and yonks ago. But actually, the bit I do is the bit in the middle, and we call it reputation marketing. Some people call it content marketing, but it's about putting yourself and your business out there and making it shine. So people go, oh, they know what they're talking about. And that's what we do, basically. So we call it reputation marketing.
Okay, so there's two things I should say. One is, you keep saying we. I didn't introduce your company. So your company is called?
Inside News.
There you go. And the other thing is, I often ask at this point a question of, why do you do what you do instead of something else? But I think, having listened to you, we know, because you're passionate about what you do.
Love it.
Yeah, love it. So thank you for answering that one at the same time, really, without even answering it. I think that's always the way, though, isn't it? Business owners, they can talk forever about their business because they're passionate about their business, because those who are not passionate about their business don't survive in business. You have to be passionate, else you wouldn't be able to cope. But, perhaps another time and another conversation. Tell me, if I was thinking of, okay, what should I do about my content marketing? Give me your top 3 tips. How would I deal with that?
Well, I mean, I've said it really. Know who your audience are, so that you're writing for somebody you can identify. And that's something you need to actually pin down, is to, in detail, understand what they want. People quite often they think they know what their target audience wants because that's what they think they ought to want, but they don't ask them. And so it's quite important to understand what the people who you're trying to reach actually really want, and then talk in their language.
Yeah.
So that's your 3 tips, and it's all one big tip really, but it all relates to each other. But people write, we this, we that, we the other, we can do this for you, we can help you with that, we do that, we have. And I'm not interested as a potential client in what you do. I want to know what I get. So, and it's just positioning. So instead of saying we do this, you would put that as you can have that.
Yeah.
And it people engage with you because they envisage themselves involved in the equation, whereas when it's we do, it's not nothing to do with me, it's somebody else, you know.
And it's about also, I think, showing what problem you can solve for people. You know, that it's not people. There's a friend, and I'm sure somebody very famous said this, and you'll probably know it was, you don't sell the sausage, you sell the sizzle. It's about that whole thing, you know. So I think that it's about getting somebody like you to help us, the rest of us who know nothing about your subject, to get us in the to talk like us and do our stuff as if you were us.
Well, when I'm writing for clients, I always try to put myself in their potential customer's seat, because when you're inside your business, you don't see it the same way. No. Because you're looking at it from a different viewpoint. So you have all this knowledge and passion, and you understand what you do, but you don't always totally get what the person on the receiving end gets. And I've done this over the years with people, and I said, so ask some of your existing clients why they like you.
Yeah.
And when I say to the wider clients, like, well, because we're very good at what we do and we deliver, and we do this, we do that. But when they ask the clients come up with something that they weren't expecting. And there was a project manager guy, and he was saying, oh, because I really know my stuff, my clients like the fact that I'm an expert and I can give them good advice, and I have a depth of knowledge to draw on. But when he asked his clients, they said, you talk to us like human beings, you turn up on time.
Yeah. And that's it. I always remember once getting, years ago, I had a catering business, and I remember being told by a customer years later, the reason they used us was because when I rang up to return their call, the first thing I said was congratulations. And we both said, we want to meet her. And when they met me, they said they were there anyway. But when they met me, they went, yeah, okay. I mean, some who know me might go, well, I wouldn't have them in ours, but that's just life. So you've been in business like me for forever. What would be your advice to somebody who was either just setting up or thinking of setting up a business?
Talk to people who've done it and find out what the chip hazards are, if you like. People they get taken up with enthusiasm. That there's somebody that we both know that's related to me that started a business, and because I was her mother, she didn't actually ask me.
So that's identified her quite nicely, isn't it?
Yeah. But she was excited, and she did things like she limited her name, and I said, well, it's not necessarily a good idea, because now it's hard to sell because nobody will buy your name. So if you wanted to sell your business at some point, you can't do that. So it's worth talking to people. And this is where I think networking is great. If you're thinking of starting a business, go to some networking events and pick the brains of the people who are doing it. Yes, because they're pretty good. Most people at networks, they're willing to share their wisdom and their experience to help people who are coming in. And I think people should always get a bit of advice, even if you haven't got a budget to pay for it, then people will help. People do, they just ask, and people will give, at least they tell you the big ones, not to fall over, like do get an accountant, don't try and do it yourself, that kind of thing, unless of course you happen to be an accountant.
But I think also that people they think that oh, well, I won't ask, I feel a bit embarrassed. If you don't ask, one of my lines is, I'm always fabulous, I'm never going to be a mind reader. So if you need something, you have to ask me. And until you ask, the answer's always no. Because in your head you go, oh, well, they won't do that. Most people want to help. And my bit of advice, one bit of advice that I give to new people who are thinking of setting up, is if you cannot afford to take the money that you are going to use, put it in a bag and throw it out the window, then don't start a business, because businesses sometimes take a long time to establish themselves. They also sometimes don't survive. And unless you can afford to lose that money with no results, do not do it. Do not use that money. And I think the other side of that is, and I know I was absolutely somebody who did this, do the vanity thing about, well, I need this and I need that, and you've got to have that, and you've got to have this, and you can start with quite a little bit, get some bits right. So tell me some, sorry, go on.
Get a mentor.
Get a mentor. Yeah, get somebody who'll say, get over yourself in some ways. And sometimes it's yourself who says that. I know yesterday I had to give myself a bit of a talking to. But I think it's also having somebody, because people around you, close to you, are emotionally involved with you. You need somebody who is not emotionally involved with you, who can say, well, why do you do that? And not just why do you do that? Why do you do that in that way? So yeah, it's having somebody who has an experience, but also is able to take that objective point of view with you and make you think. But yeah, so a mentor, a business advisor, a business coach, they come in all different sorts of disguises and names and all of that. If you want any hints, tips, me or Lesley, get in touch. Okay, so tell me something that you do in your spare time. So we've heard about Lesley, the business owner, Lesley, the entrepreneur. Tell me a bit about you.
I sing in a choir and I love it. It's not a serious choir, as in we don't sing, sort of Handel's water music, that kind of thing. We sing poppy stuff and bit of rock here and there. It's called Busketeers, and we have a fantastic sort of community as well. So, and that's kept going all through the trials and tribulations of 2020. So I thought that was quite good going.
Yeah.
I read a lot. And not necessarily inspiring, uplifting things. I read light entertainment, because that's my relaxation, my downtime. What else do I do? I used to sew a lot, and then I stopped sewing, and then my daughter bought me a sewing machine for Christmas last year, so I've started sewing again. So
yeah. Well, sometimes all at the same time. I know. I came round to yours one time, and this was in downtime, not in office time, and you were sewing and you had headphones on with a podcast on. So, a multitasker, even when supposed to be relaxing.
I do like a good podcast.
Right.
But again, sort of mostly entertaining. Despite the fact my children are grown up, I listen to the parenting lockdown hell one with a couple of comedians, which is usually hysterically funny. I quite like Giles Brandreth and Susie Dent's Something Rhymes with Purple, but I like words, so that's hardly surprising.
Yes.
And I quite like the new Chris Evans How to Wow, and I know Chris Evans is a bit Marmite, not everybody loves him, but he does some cracking interviews, so I've listened to a few of those. They've been good.
I think also, whenever you do any of that, podcast or read books or, business books or listen to people's advice, I think there's things you learn, and sometimes you learn how not to do things because you think, oh, I wouldn't do it that way. And also, I think as business owners, you have the right to say no, as in, no, that's great advice, but actually I'm a bit of an idiot today, so I'm not taking it. I'm just going to go my own merry way, and I might be back in 6 months going, you know what, you were right. So you do a lot of sort of face-to-face stuff. I know I see a lot of your stuff on various social media things with your little happy smiley face, talking to people and giving them good advice. Before we finish, I want you to, because it's something that whenever I think of you in your business, I think of this. Tell me about RAVE.
Oh, RAVE, that's my acronym. And it stands for reputation, authority, visibility, and expertise. And the premise behind it is that you need to take control of your reputation because it's how you influence people. And what's out there, you know, there's this old cliche, I think, that if you say something often enough, people start to believe it.
Yeah.
Well, the idea is not that you say something that's not true, but if you keep telling people that you're an expert in, or you're good at, or you've got knowledge of, they start to realize actually you do. Authority is about becoming an authority in your industry so that you're the first person that pops into their head when they think about your industry, because that's a really good place to be, because you get opportunities to, be interviewed for stuff and go on the local radio stations and maybe even national radio or TV and get articles into relevant publications. Visibility is sort of pretty self-explanatory because people today, they're all over social media, but if you're not visible, they forget about you really quickly. So you do need to have a consistent posting strategy for social media and the content you put out, whether that's blogs or articles or newsletters or email campaigns or whatever. And expertise is literally showing off. It's how do people know how good you are? And the answer is either somebody else tells them because they've experienced it, which is great because third-party validation is very important. But also if they read your articles or your blogs, so if you've written an article on LinkedIn or you've got a blog on your website and they go, and you're sharing your knowledge, not just trying to sell stuff, because that's not the purpose of a blog. People suddenly realize this person knows what they're talking about. And I have had people say to me, well, if you give away all your secrets, people won't pay you to do what you do. And that's not true. That really is not true, because you can tell people how to do something. If it's not their thing, yeah, they'll go, yeah, I can follow that, but I don't want to do it. It's like me in a spreadsheet. I can use a spreadsheet, but I don't really want to do my own accounts. I know that it just get pushed to the back burner and it would never happen. Yeah.
And it's also that thing about having other people do stuff for you is a way of enabling you, each of us as business owners, to focus on the things that either we are good at and or that we like doing. So I have various people who do various things for me, which I am quite capable of doing myself. But really, no, I've earned the right to say no to that. And so I get other people around me who do what I do. And using your accountant thing, I've always had an accountant from day one of setting up in business, because an accountant once said to me, well, you don't want an accountant. What you need is a tax advisor who is really good as an accountant. That's what you want. You want somebody who is able to make sure you don't break any laws, get everything done on time, don't incur any fines, does it accurately, picks up your mistakes and all of that stuff. So it's,
that's why I've got two people who work with me.
Yeah.
So one does all the Facebooky stuff and Facebook ads and Pinterest and PR and that, which yes, I can do. I'm not really a Facebook person. I go on it to stalk my kids. That's about it, really. But no, that's not true. I have got a group on Facebook and I do work in the group, but I don't actually do all the advertising stuff. So she does that. She's very, very good at it and enjoys it. And then I've got somebody who does all the social media administration. So we give her articles. She turns them into social media. She turns them into newsletters. She reminds me to do things. She reminds me to generate content every month. So, and yeah, I could do all of that too, but don't want to.
No, because you want to do your sewing and you want to do your reading books and you want to do all that and you want to have a life that's not just about business. Because I think one of the problems, and if anybody listens to these regularly, this is one of my recurring themes. When you are a business owner, you never stop work, because even if you're not working, suddenly an idea will come into your mind. My best ones come when I'm doing exercise. I exercise and suddenly I go, oh, that's how you do that. And just to pick up finally on your comment about people will believe things, I went to look for a quote this morning, Nelson, I've always thought that Nelson Mandela said that thing about our greatest fear is not that we are, it is that we are fabulous and wonderful. It's not that we're in that. He didn't say it. Apparently somebody else said it, and I've been quoting it, and I've got it on my desk upstairs and all of that stuff, and just, you know, so anyway, thank you for your time today. It's been an absolute blast. As is always. I could talk to you forever because you've got so much of a brain that I could pick, and hopefully, as an outsider, let me tell you that. And it might be that we do another one sometime in the future and look at what trends are and what should people be doing and all of that stuff in another point. But for now, thank you, and thanks everybody for listening and hopefully sharing and having a good time.